In the first part of today's lab, we looked at the longitudinal regions of the spine, and we are going to look at models later on. In part 3 of today's lab, we're going to look at cross-sectional models. In this section, we're going to look at the histology. We'll do two things. We'll look at the histology of the cross-section of the spine, then we'll look at the different regions of the spine. So we're going to go to this webpage, and we have a cross-section of the spine right here. Now, I like this because it's a beautiful posterior root ganglia. I can't really see the dura mater right here that well. And where's the anterior median fissure? So I want you to draw this. This was a nice picture I found online. And we could scroll to see other views. Look at that ganglia. More ganglia. Here, there's an anterior median fissure. So you can see different views as well. This one we have an anterior and posterior root. It's probably thoracic. I don't see any lumbar section right there. But I want you to draw the first one. It's because it's the prototypical. I have a lateral horn. I have an anterior horn. I have a beautiful ganglia. So here's the spinal cord. And we have our posterior root ganglias here and our anterior median fissure. Now, why do I know that's an anterior median fissure? See how it goes further back? So it definitely is going in there. Where if I go to the posterior, I don't really have that divide. Here's the sulcus. It's actually a weird sulcus on this model. But here I could clearly see it goes in. So we're going to start with the dura mater. So here is the dura mater going around. Now, sometimes in histology slides, you see the dura mater, you see the arachnoid mater and space between. That space is an artifact. I don't see any arachnoid mater here, so we're not going to worry. The pia mater would be going around, and on this stain, it's not that clear. Now we have our two roots of the spinal cord. Actually, let's talk about the shape first. So the shape is an oval. Here's the shape. And here's the anterior median fissure. And the posterior median sulcus is back here. So that's the sulcus right there. That's a little something funky. Now we have a butterfly shape. This big thing right here, you think is the front wing, is actually the lateral horn and the anterior horn. So these both have nerves that have axons going, or neurons have axons going out, going through this anterior root. So this is probably rootlets coming out, then there's the anterior root right there. Now, for you guys and for the lab exam, anterior rootlets, anterior root, they're the same thing. You have so much more to worry about than, is this a rootlet, is this a root? So anterior rootlets, technically anterior root. Now, this beautiful one back here, that actually really does go all the way back, is the posterior horn. And the posterior horn has axons of unipolar cell bodies, or unipolar neurons. So there's a cell body, there's the neuron going in, and it's going into the posterior region, where it's going to meet interneurons. So this is the posterior horn. Now, they do touch. So here is, let's say this is a pain neuron attached to a pain receptor. It's going to go in. It's actually going to cross that gray commiserate right there. Or you have some reflexes that will cross the gray commiserate with the axon going from there to somewhere over there. So this is the gray commiserate. What I just destroyed there was the central canal. It apparently closes off as we age, and the main cerebral spinal fluid is actually on the outside. And we then have our white matter areas. This is the anterior white matter. Probably shouldn't do yellow on pink or yellow on white. Anterior white matter, lateral white matter, posterior white matter. Anterior, lateral, posterior. Now in some pictures online, you'll see funcculus. This is a functional region, so it's the anterior functionalus. We're not going to work. I'll use white matter on the test. Now, there's actually a commiserate right there called the white commiserate. So, for the first spinal cord histology, I want you to draw that drawing on the internet. We have the dura mater. Pretend there's an anterior median fissure right there. Gray commissary, anterior white matter, lateral white matter, posterior white matter. Anterior horn, lateral horn, posterior horn. Posterior root ganglia, anterior root. So that's what you need to label. So you're going to go to this webpage called Neuroscience for Kids. You guys aren't kids, I know. And I want you to scroll down. So you're going to go to this website called Neuroscience for Kids, and you're going to scroll down to this part right here. And my window's doing weird things with this web page. So now you have your option of drawing this or drawing this. It is up to you. Now, what I want you to see is that the gray matter in the thoracic region right here is very thin compared to the gray matter in the lumbar region, because that's going to your legs, and the cervical region, because that's going to your arms. So the gray matter in these two regions is going to be thicker than this region. And the spinal cord is wider. I actually like these pictures better. I'm going to right-click to make it bigger. I guess I can't. So what I did was I zoomed in, and what I want to show you is the thoracic region has that lateral horn right there. It's missing down here on the cervical region, and doesn't really seem to exist. They're calling this the sacral region. So if we look at our lab book picture, we have our three regions. I actually took these on the overhead projector in the class. We don't really have a lateral horn on the cervical. See how much bigger it is? Here is the lateral horn on the thoracic region. And because this is lumbar, and you actually have some sympathetic nerves coming out of L1, you actually have a lateral horn there. So basically I want you to see there's a lateral horn in the thoracic, but it's smaller gray matter because there's less motor neurons going to the limbs. This has bigger gray matter on both of these, but it doesn't have the lateral horn. So don't take more than 2 minutes drawing the spinal sections. I know I just spent 5 minutes talking about it. And in case you need labeling for the other part, for the spinal cross-section, here are your labels. So thank you very much.